All right, good morning, guys. Today we are going to be looking at factoring quadratic trinomials. So this is going to probably take you quite a bit of practice to master. We're going to be working on this pretty much all week, so if you don't get it right away, that's okay. Just make sure you keep watching the videos and you're trying to practice as much as you can. So it does look like we're going to be on page 30 today. All right, and this is called factoring quadratic trinomials. And today we're really going to be focusing on factoring where what we call A is just 1. So a quadratic trinomial, remember, is where it has that exponent of 2 as our highest degree. So what we say is it's ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are all different numbers, okay? And so today we're practicing where a is 1. So when we have a coefficient of 1, we really can just kind of eliminate that and just call it x squared. So we're going to look at a couple of these first of all. We're just going to go through and do some examples together. So our first one that we're going to look at is going to be x squared plus 10k, plus 10x plus 16. All right, and so what factoring really means is that we're taking this and we're putting it back into a format that looks like multiplying those binomials together. So we want it to look like a format that has these parentheses and it's got some stuff inside, where then we would put it in the box method and we would get this out as the answer. So we're kind of working backwards, all right? So we are going to use the box method today. And when you factor a quadratic trinomial, if you factor this right here, you're going to get out a binomial times a binomial. So that's how I knew to do a 2 by 2 box. Okay, so for all these today, we're using a 2 by 2 box. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Just grab some highlighters here. And first thing that we're going to do is, we know that our very first term goes in our very first box. So the very first thing we're going to do is put in x squared right there. And we know that our last term, this positive 16, goes in our last box down here. So we're going to put in positive 16. For the first couple, we're just going to be looking at positive numbers, so the plus sign doesn't really matter. When we start to look at the negative ones, it's definitely going to change a little bit. All right, this right here is the combination of these two boxes. So we have to find something that adds up to be positive 10 that goes in these boxes. That could be like 2 plus 8, or 6 plus 4, or 1 plus 9. But here's how we're going to decide. We're going to come over here and say that we know that two things have to multiply together to give us 16, right? Because that's what this number right here and this number right here would equal 16. We also have to know that this number times this number equals x squared. Well, the only thing that can equal x squared is x times x. So we can kind of go ahead and fill that part in. Now, what equals 16? Well, there's a couple different things, so we're going to write out some factors. All right, so one set of factors would be 1 times 16. That would give us that 16. So we could put a 1 here and a 16 there, or vice versa. Another thing that gives us 16 would be 4 times 4. And we have one more set of factors for 16. That's going to be 2 times 8. Now remember, we want these two boxes to equal 10 when we add them. So what we're going to do over here is we're just going to write the sum. So if we instead added 1 plus 16, our sum would be 17. If we added 4 plus 4, our sum would be 8. And if we added 2 plus 8, our sum would be 10. So we're actually looking for this one right here because it has a sum of 10. So we know that our two other numbers, it's kind of like a guess and check game. Our two other numbers have to be 2 and 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 here and 8 here. And we're going to finish filling in our box. So we have 8 times x was 8x. And x times 2 is 2x. And when we do combine those, we do get that answer of 10x right there. Okay? So finally, we're going to write it as our answer here. And it's going to be x. And since we have a positive 2 here, our first one's going to be x plus 2. And then down on this side, we have x and 8, and they're both positive. So we're going to have x plus 8. All right, so that's how we're going to factor quadratic trinomials. So I know it's a lot to take in at first. We're going to do a few more examples together. All right, so the next one that we're going to do, we're going to have x squared plus 8x plus 15. So x squared plus 8x plus 15. And again, the point of factoring is to get it back into this binomial times binomial. So we're going to do a 2 by 2 box. Remember, we're going to put our first term of the given into this first box right here. And we're going to put our last term of what was given into our last box right there. So x squared, and we have 15. That we know, okay? Now we know that these two middle boxes here, these two diagonal boxes, they have to add together to give us 8. All right? So what times what is going to give us x squared? Well, we can go ahead and fill that in. That's x times x. And what times what is going to give us 15? So again, we need to write some factors out. 1 times 15 will give us 15. And also 3 times 5 will give us 15. But we want to make sure that we choose the right one, so we have to know the sum of those two numbers as well. So if we were to add these, 1 plus 15 gives us 16. 3 plus 5 gives us 8. So which one should we choose? Well, we should choose the one that matches this up here. So this 8x talks about our sum here of 8. So we want to choose the numbers 3 and 5. 3, 5. Okay, make sure that right now we're using all positive, so everything should be positive. But in the future, we're going to make sure that our positive times positive gives us a positive here. Okay, so x times 3, we would fill in with 3x. And x times 5, we'd fill in with 5x. And we want to make sure those add together to give us 8, and they do. So that tells us that we have x and 3 for our answer, x plus 3, and x and 5 for our other part of our answer, so x plus 5. All right, we're going to do one more positive one, and then I am going to throw a negative one at you. All right, so we're going to have x squared, excuse me, plus 7x plus 12. All right, again, we want our answer to be in this format where it's a binomial times a binomial. So we're going to do a 2 by 2 box. Our first term is always our lead term, and that goes in our first box. And our last term is always going to be in that last box. So we go ahead and fill those in. And we're saying what times what is going to give us x squared. That's going to be x times x. Okay, and what times what is going to give us 12, right? This times this gives us 12, but they have to add together to give us 7. So we need to list out our factors. So to get to 12, we can do 1 times 12. We could do 2 times 6, or we could do 3 times 4. And we always want to make sure we check our sums because we want a sum of 7. 1 plus 12 would give us a sum of 13. 2 plus 6 would give us a sum of 8. And 3 plus 4 would give us a sum of 7. So the one that we want to choose is this 3 and 4. because it gives us a sum of 7, and that's what we're looking for right here, sum of 7. Okay, so we're going to put a 3 here and a 4 here, and we'll finish multiplying the box out. That's going to give us 3x, that'll give us 4x, and these are both positive, so they do add together to give us 7. Our final answer is going to be up top and on the side, so we have x plus 3 and x plus 4. All right, so this very last one that we're going to do, we're going to throw in a negative here, and we're going to do x squared minus x minus 20. All right, so this one's going to be a little bit different. We definitely will go over more of these. I just want you to focus today really on trying to do some of the positive ones. You will have an IXL lesson, but it won't be due until Friday, and it'll include all of this stuff. All right, so same kind of deal. We're still looking for a binomial times a binomial, and we are still going to be making a 2 by 2 box. We're still going to be putting this first term in the first box and the last term in the last box, but we have to make sure that we keep that negative with our 20 this time. So we have x squared and negative 20. All right, so what times what is going to give us x squared? Those should be pretty easy. That's going to be x and x. What times what is going to give us 20? But remember, it has to be a negative 20. So if you think about it, our numbers are still going to be the same factors, but one of these numbers has to be positive and one has to be negative. And it does matter which one. So I'm going to show you how to figure that out. But right now, we need to come over here and list our factors. And we're trying to get to 20. So we have 1 times 20. We have 2 times 10. We have 4 times 5, okay? And then we want to make sure that our sum this time should equal -1. All right, so we're going to have to play around with this. So we could have -1 times 20. That would give us, if we did -1 times 20, that would give us positive 19. If we did 1 times -20, that would give us -19. Okay? If we did -2 times 10, that would give us positive 8. So remember, we're adding, we're finding the sum. If we did positive 2 times -10, if we did those two as our factors, and we added them, we would actually get -8. If we did -4 times 5 to get -20, and we added them, we would get a positive 1. But if we did 4 times -5 to get our -20, and we added them, we'd actually end up with a -1. All right, so when you have these negatives in here, you actually have to do a little bit more math. You have to consider not only your 2 numbers for your factors, but what if one was positive and one was negative? Okay, so that's why we have these doubles here. Here we're looking for a -1. This negative x really means we're looking for a -1x. Okay, so we want our 2 factors here to multiply to -20, but to add together to get -1. So here's our -1 for our sum. We want to use these 2 factors right here, 4 and -5. Now it doesn't matter where you put the 4 and -5 as long as you keep the 4 positive and the -5. So I'm going to put 4 here, it's a positive 4, -5 here, okay, and we want to make sure this still works out. So 4 times -5 gives us -20. This will give us positive 4x. This would give us -5x. And if we did -5 plus 4, we would get -1x. Therefore, our answer is x plus 4 and x minus 5.